Happy 4th of July. Hope you're having as good a day as you can in these trying times. But I know I am not celebrating in the usual American fashion today. I used to love the cookouts and the fireworks, but today I find that having an attitude of somber reflection is much more appropriate, because the little freedom that was ascertained by and won by the Patriots of the American Revolution has been squandered. I mean, just name anything of meaning you can do that isn't regulated or taxed or in some way controlled by some form of government. I mean, I'm looking for a place to park my tiny house again, and it used to be able to go out and just settle on land, but the federal government owns and controls so much land in just the western half of the United States, like so much you wouldn't even believe it if I told you how much. But I don't know that number off the top of my head, but it is pretty unfathomable how much land they control. But if they didn't control it, I could just move this house out onto some of that land and live my life. But we live in tyranny. But in 1776, a group of radical extremists got together and they wrote a fuck you letter to a tyrant who lived across the ocean. And that's why we celebrate today. But that letter was ultimately meaningless if it wasn't for the everyday men and women who took up arms against the tyranny that was in their midst. In 1775, April 30th, the battles of Lexington and Concord happened, and those were the shots heard around the world, because it was a huge act of defiance against the British Empire. Paul Revere made his famous midnight ride that the night before, riding through the Massachusetts countryside, warning people, the British are coming. They're coming to take your guns, because the Patriots had been stockpiling arms, and they decided to make a stand when General Gage marched through the Massachusetts countryside. I was actually born in Boston, or nearby Boston, and this rifle was made nearby there as well. I can't help but feeling that I'm channeling some kind of spirit of the American Revolution, because my tolerance for any kind of status bullshit these days is very thin, if not non-existent. I mean, there's some things you have to do to stay alive, but I mean, all of that stuff wears on you the more it happens to you. I was pulled over at the side of the road just yesterday, or 2 days ago, after work, tired after work, and when those lights come on behind you, you know you are being coerced. Make no doubt about it in your mind. If you don't pull over, violent, deadly force might be brought down upon you. And so if you don't feel like dying, better pull over. You know, I was informed that I was in violation of some statute that says you have to have a front license plate. If I wasn't so tired and exhausted from the 8 hours of manual labor I had just done, I might have been able to speak on the behalf of natural law a little bit better than what I did. But, you know, I'd like to think that any American doesn't want to be, wouldn't like to be labeled as a Tory. But some of the interactions I've been having with people lately make me think otherwise. I mean, this cop, he seemed proud of what he was doing, and it just goes to show that the cops of today would have been the redcoats of yesteryear. And the mask-wearing, vaccine-pushing statists of today would have been the Tories of yesteryear. And the people who are standing up for gun rights, free will, truth, love, freedom, all of that would have been the patriots of yesteryear. And, you know, this video comes in the wake of, you know, the largest social media platform, Facebook, calling all of us out as violent extremists, when what we're really about is telling people what their rights are, and asserting those rights in the face of tyranny. We're about love, we're about truth, we're about freedom. When did that become such an extreme thing? When did forcing your will on people just because you're scared become normal? When did abdicating your responsibility for your own health and safety become normal?